tuning in to Askanwi Weekly Review. This is the first Askanwi Weekly Review which we are going to talk about, and we want to take this opportunity to talk about all the stories which we've published over the week and more recently and the trending things that are happening in the Gambia. Of course, we have a lot to talk about. My name is Yusuf Taylor, the editor for Askanwi Media. With me on my left is Edward Francis Dahlia. Edward has been working with us for over a year now.
Yeah.
Yes, and he's got a series of reports which we will be highlighting in this review that have been published, worth talking about for sure. So we are going to go into Parliament. We're going to talk about Parliament because Parliament, that's the starting place for this weekly review, has started their first ordinary session of 2025. They started it on Monday. The first ordinary session was supposed to actually feature the budget implementation report from the Minister of Finance. But that has not happened, and that brings us to our first story where it's a bit of advocacy actually, and I've been doing some rounds. We have been highlighting the challenge that exists currently where there is no budget oversight. There is no budget oversight. On 3rd of March, the finance minister was supposed to come and bring a budget implementation report to Parliament to tell them how the budget is being spent or executed, but that never happened. So, of course, it's a concern for those of us who are interested in budget transparency. Just talk to my colleague a little bit before we move on to the next topic, because this actually ties into the next topic which we want to talk about, which you had, Edward was the one who wrote the second report. But before we move into there, budget oversight. Some people might not know what is even budget oversight, you know, so perhaps maybe you could go into it a little bit and just give us your perspective about the whole thing.
Yeah, in everything we do, there is budget in life, and when you're budgeting, you have to go back and trace what you have done, whether you have executed what you budgeted or you have not executed it.
Exactly.
And this is where budget oversight comes in. So I believe that the government is doing something with the budget, which is passed. So the parliament has to perform its function to go through it, to check whether the government is doing the correct thing or not.
Not, indeed.
So that we can be able to trace where corruption is, where fraud is, so that the public may know that, okay, this is how our tax...
And the budget that you guys have passed, this is how far we have gone. We are implementing it, we are executing it. This is how it's going. But that is no longer happening. Last year on the second ordinary session for 2024, that never happened. The third ordinary session, that never happened. And then the Parliament is just letting them off the hook. This is a very big cause for concern. And also what used to happen, the Ministry of how the budget implementation or budget process is going. They normally call it a budget performance report.
Yeah.
And Edward, our next story, which we are going to review, is about this budget implementation, this budget report, which covers how our money has been spent from January to November 2024. Just for those who are listening, let me give you a heads up as to what is coming. We are going to talk about the diaspora, of course, next. And then after that, we are going to shift to Africa, look at what is happening in Africa. Of course, Guinea Bissau is on the headlines. Sudan also, there's a war going on there. We are going to touch on that. Also, we have fact checks, 3 fact checks, which we are going to talk about, which we've published of late. The president claimed that there is a tourism boom. We've investigated those claims and found them to be false. The Minister of Information, Dr Ceesay, has made a series of claims. Of course, the bag of onions, we've debunked that. And not only that, auditors. Audit reports, are they just opinions? We also debunk that. So don't go anywhere. There is so much for us to talk about today. We're going to go on to the next story, which is written by Edward. He is now an accomplished business economy writer.
I'm just trying.
I was just saying yesterday, if I left journalism today, at least I am confident that somebody like Edward is now writing about the budget comprehensively. Go on our website and check it. And in that report, I'm not going to steal all the shine. He's going to give us some more about it. But basically, generally, the report highlights that last year, over 28% of our budget went to debt repayments. Edward, how does this make it difficult for the government to invest in health, education, other priority sectors that would need agriculture? How? 28%. So that means that what is left to invest in everything else?
If you check that 28%, it is equivalent to $7.38 billion, which is so huge. $7.38 billion in something that is very huge compared to what is being spent in agriculture, which we say it is the backbone of our economy on debt servicing. And what is more concerning is we just have 28%, and 2025, the projection is 23%. So 11 billion will be going to debt servicing.
That's this 2025, 11 billion.
$11 billion.
Yes. It's going to get worse.
So I think this is making it seems like the government is just using the revenue that it is generating and putting it to debt than using it to put it to agriculture, education, health, and so on. And if we keep on going like this, we are just doing monkey work back it.
Indeed.
As a country, as a nation. So I believe the government should at least have a strategy to be able to at least come up with something that will be able to reduce the amount of money that they are putting on debt service.
Debt service has been a concern. Even me, I remember when I started reporting on business economy, that has always been one of the concerns. I started raising 25%. It has always been like this. Over 25% of our budget going into debt repayments. Nobody says debt is a bad thing if you use it wisely. But in our case, the debts that we are taking, are we genuinely using it? Questions which we need to raise to ourselves, and we need to ask ourselves, should we continue taking these debts? Should we not stop? When does it come? When do we decide that it's finally time, we've taken enough? Because of right now, domestic debt is stifling the local economy. Most of the banks are giving loans to the government. And when they give loans to the government, then what is there to give to local businesses? Overcrowding out the private sector from gaining funds from businesses, commercial banks, that they can use to strengthen the private sector. So we want to move.
I'm not cutting you. Let me just come in. Because even Lawyer Usain Dabo, the United Democratic Party leader, just highlighted this recently, that we are just using our money paying debt. Why not the government strategize to at least come up with something? He said that using our money to pay debt is something that is concerning. He raised that concern.
Indeed.
And newspapers carry these things.
Yes, I saw that.
Online media carry these things. So it is something that we should at least raise so that people will be aware of. I believe that journalists also could do something.
Definitely. Yes, more journalists. And civil society
can do something. Report on this matter so that people will know and people will understand what is going on. These reports are not just written on documents for them to be on that document, but rather for us to go and analyze it and bring it out to the public. Yes. So I believe also other journalists also have a greater work to do, and civil society advocates.
Thank you very much. For anybody who is just tuning in, you're tuning into Askanwi Media on our YouTube, on our Facebook. We are live on both of them. We wanted to bring you this weekly review We're going to round up the activities of Parliament. Parliament has been very busy, and I'm sure there's a lot of news coming from Parliament. You've seen it all over, but none more so than the diaspora voting, which has been removed. We all saw this, and then everybody has been shocked with the elections bill, clause 14, which governed the diaspora registration, has been removed from the elections bill, and the diaspora has been up in arms, highlighting that they feel betrayed, that they have been removed. Of course, National Human Rights Commission, they have released a statement, pretty much condemning Parliament for their action. Civil society groups have written. I've seen a number of civil society groups writing about it, publishing about it, and advocating about it. But myself here, I'm a diaspora advocate, and I will not shy away from it. I do feel like the Minister for Justice didn't really help matters with his advice by claiming that, even if they pass the law, they still have issues to, IEC will still have a challenge to implement it, rather than trying to proffer a solution as to say, a court order, Supreme Court has already ruled that the diaspora must be registered, right? Now, what I felt that the Minister for Justice should have done was to take cognizance of the Supreme Court's ruling that they, diaspora, must be registered and they must be given the right to vote. Now, his statement and his advice should have been, yes, there is no problem in registering the diaspora. Because quite frankly, I don't see any qualms with registering the diaspora with the rules right now. And then secondly, advise that yes, to go further, there is no challenge because it is not an entrenched clause. Clause 88 is not entrenched from the people we are talking to and looking at the laws. There is no reason why IEC cannot, even if demarcation is the problem, IEC can demarcate without any problem. But unfortunately, that section has been removed. So here we are.
To me, I was surprised because I can remember just 9 months ago, there was this workshop that MSDG
did, yes,
we are having, and yes, I was there, and I was fortunate to ask the minister this question, to promise that the diaspora will vote next electoral cycle. And he laughed and said, I cannot promise, but we are committed as a government. And just recently, that he had with QTV,
yes,
yeah, he highlighted that they are committed. So I am surprised that the minister will come and give such advice to the parliament.
Honestly, I was very disappointed. My view, and I don't hide it anywhere, is that the Minister for Justice advice was not in conformance to the Supreme Court's ruling. Clearly. Now, the Minister for Justice should have advised what needed to be done for the diaspora to vote. It is not necessary to, amend an entrenched clause. And given that it's not a challenge, there is no reason why the diaspora should not be allowed to vote. Clause 14 should be brought inside that elections bill. And if at all, it's the only issue is demarcation. IEC can demarcate, there is no problem. There is no problem. There have been lots of discussions and dialogue between the diaspora, MSDG spearheading it, and other Gambians in the diaspora and parliamentarians. Even me, myself, I was a representative of the diaspora in parliament where I spoke to the committee that was in charge of the elections bill. We gave them our statements. We explained to them what needed to be done. They know very fully well. Of course, Parliament has changed, but there is no reason why. So we are going to now shift our attention from Gambia, National Assembly, to Africa. For all of you who are tuning in, you are tuned into Askanwi Media, and I'm your host, Yusef Taylor alias Flexdan. This is the first Askanwi Weekly Review, where we're going to talk about some of the most trending topics of the week. Of course, some of you may not be aware of what might be happening across the rest of Africa, but we certainly want to talk about them. And Edward will do a little bit more of the talking because of these are all two stories which he has published and written about. Of course, just over the weekend last week, the president of Guinea Bissau attempted to expel or expelled the ECOWAS. He threatened to expel them because ECOWAS was doing a elections observation, and they are current, and they were, that is the Guinea Bissau, they were doing their presidential elections.
No, it's not presidential, but they're supposed to have done.
They're supposed to have.
The president postponed,
which has now been postponed. Thank you so much, Edward. Please take it away. For us, this presidential election is now postponed. It's no longer taking place. Huh?
No, it's no longer taking place because the presidential election is supposed to be done on last year, November, but the president postponed it. And since then, the opposition of the country, we are just raising concerns about it. So raising concerns, a Supreme Court ruling said the president's mandate is extended up to September. But this opposition now are saying that the president's mandate has expired. So ECOWAS go there to have a dialogue so that they can have a way forward. But in having this dialogue, the president threatens to expel them.
But ECOWAS had almost finished their work, right?
Yeah.
So they ended up vacating.
So they went and they wrote a press release highlighting that they have been threatened and they have gone, but they have something that they have drafted and they are going to share it to the ECOWAS Commission so that they can look for and move on from there.
So, well, the Supreme Court of Guinea-Bissau has made their ruling, but is that in line with democratic principles, you know? From Guinea-Bissau, we want to take you all the way to Sudan, where a war is happening. Many of you know about the Ukraine war. Many of you know about wars happening in other places. Of course, Gaza, Palestine, and we sympathize with all the victims of human rights violations and those who are being killed in any of these wars. But there is another war happening here in Africa, a silent war that many of us don't talk about, which is Sudan. Africans are suffering in Sudan, and worse still, children as young as, we've got a comment, perfect, 1 year old are being raped in Sudan. Edward wrote this story. Edward, please, what can you tell us about what is happening in Sudan and the war there?
What is happening in Sudan is heartbreaking, and I sympathize for those victims that are going through a lot, most especially those who have lost their loved ones. This is something that is heartbreaking. And I was listening to BBC early in the morning, and I just heard the report.
About the UNICEF
report.
Yes.
So I said, no, this must be amplified. So I just went on and sat on my laptop and started the story. And going through that report, I was so shocked.
I can imagine.
Because it is something like, how can a human being saw someone, a child as old as 1 year old, and you sexually violate that child?
Incredible.
It is heartbreaking.
Really.
And I believe that international bodies who are advocating for human rights should really get up and fight against this. UNICEF has done their part. They have revealed this thing, and they are still doing their part, helping these people who are victimized. But also, where are other international bodies? Where are other international bodies like the AU? We should all stand and condemn this thing. This is not something that is done.
At all.
This is not something that is done.
It's shocking. Very shocking.
raping someone as old as 1 year old
1 year.
is terrible.
Incredible.
And the executive director of UNICEF, Ms. Catherine Russell, said this is against international law.
It's a crimes against humanity.
Yeah, it's crime against humanity.
Indeed.
And she has called for all international bodies who are fighting for human rights to come and condemn this thing. So I believe also that the Sudanese people who are doing this thing should reconsider and know that these people are children.
They are children.
And the trauma that is going to stay with them,
generational, huh?
it will be something that they will live for the end of their life, for the rest of their life rather.
Yeah, no, this is very harrowing. When I saw that report that you wrote, we had to certainly publish it to highlight the silent war which is taking place in Africa. And many of us in the media, we are not talking about it. You know, I think us as Africans, we should highlight what is happening in our continent and the challenges that we are going through. Now, if any of you are just tuning in, please do share this stream. We want to be bringing this stream more often so that we will be discussing about, you know, some of the stories, bring them to life, not just in write-up. We've also got some shorts which our other reporters like Hadi Ceesay, Fatoumata Conte, they are doing their videos, and we've also got more videos which you can check on Askanwi, on our YouTube, on our Facebook, about, you know, the cost of living. Just today we published something on Tipa Garage, vendors at Tipa Garage, talking about price of commodities and goods. So
in this Ramadan.
Yes, it's Ramadan time, and you know that it's very important. The cost of goods, etc., are very important. But please, for any of you just tuning in, do share to your colleagues, to share to other people, so that they can join into this important conversation and get up to date as to what is happening. Now we are going to wrap up our Askanwi Weekly review today. The first Askanwi Weekly review, actually, we're going to talk about the fact checks and fact sheets which we've published recently. We've investigated President Barrow's tourism boom claim and Information Minister Dr Ceesay's multiple claims. One of it, bag of onions. So, of course, the bag of onions, Dr Ceesay came to Coffee Time, and then he did recounter to say that
he clarified.
He clarified that he got things wrong.
Yeah.
But we wanted to go further. Now, our fact check is not just to name and shame. No, we all know people are interested when somebody says, "Hey, this is what somebody claims." But we wanted to go beyond, and we did a lot of research to ascertain that the country currently, we're only able to cater for about 20% of our onions demands. And the findings which we found is that there are curing sites which are needed, because our onions are very seasonal, one, and then they cannot keep them for long. Most of the people who harvest their onions will put them in their houses, etc. They will not be cured, so when they are not cured, then, you know, they all want to sell them around the same time, and then after that, the market is flooded by imported onions. So two things which we've ascertained, right? Certainly a bag of onions is not costing $500. Right now, the bag of onions is costing around $1,200 to $1,300. If you want to get it for wholesale, over 50 bags, you would get it a little bit cheaper. But how can we resolve this crisis of flooding the market within this period? Because very soon the local onions will be flooding the market and the price of onions will come down. And then when the market has been flooded with local onions and the onions have concluded selling them and there's no more, then it's going to be a challenge. We go back to imported onions.
We go back to normal trend.
So then what we need is, apparently from talking to the experts that we have spoken to, We need more curing sites so that the onions can be cured and they can be kept for longer. We need onions that have different species of onions that could be cultivated year-round, so that we'll be able to cater for the year-round demand of onions. So that's the first one on onions. Fact check, Dr. Ceesay. Any words on that before we move on to the president?
Yeah, to me, I was shocked when Dr. Ceesay said bag of onion is $500. I was shocked because if you check bag of onion, when was it $500?
I cannot even remember when last.
So when last was it $500? So yes, it might come down, but it is not something that will go up to $500. For example, my mother usually cultivate onion. So, and we are in the season. And when she cultivate onion, and when we harvest it, we don't normally buy onions. For almost a period of 3-4 months, we don't buy onions. But those onions that she cultivate, we cannot also sell it at the market because she is just cultivating a small scale something, not for business purpose, but for only the family. So I believe these curing sites that you highlighted is something very important that will make women who are interested in cultivating onion to venture in it and at least earn a living. Agriculture
year-round, not just within a particular season.
Agriculture is something that is beneficial. People will earn a living, people will have income, and the economy will flow. Just yesterday, I was reviewing the book of my nephew about something that is not changing. Difficulties or what are farmers facing? The difficulties that are farmers facing. I was reading the book.
Same thing.
And same thing. I was in grade 8.
The same thing.
The same thing. Now I have graduated from senior secondary school. Same challenge are being highlighted in the books.
Something has to change.
These are the difficulties that the farmers are facing. Low income, inadequate water supply, fertilizers problem, low technical know-how. All these things are being highlighted in those books. And still, we have not even have any way forward. So I believe government should do something about it.
It's high time. It goes back to what we were talking about. Reduce expenditure on debt. Invest more on agriculture. This is very important. We are working on a feature article on agriculture, which is about to come out. We are looking at the question of independence. Edward is the one who is writing this story. Actually, get ready for this story. This is a big story. He came up with it on his own. But the idea, we've been cooking this thing up. We are cooking it, is food self-sufficiency. How closer are we to food self-sufficiency? Comes to rice, also similar, 20%, 25%. Most of the things that we actually, agriculture-wise produce in this country for our consumptions, we cannot even, absorb the demand. So what is happening with that? We're going to move on to another fact check. And on this fact check, we are going to move on to President Barrow. Tourism booming claim. The president, during his New Year statement, made a claim that tourism is booming and that over 33,000 tourists were recorded. We looked at that and started scratching our head. Where is the president getting the numbers from? Because not only that, the president highlighted that by the end of the tourism season, there would be 268,000 tourists. Now, if you look at that, the difference between 233 and 268 is about 30-something. Right? Now, we felt that definitely something, the moment the president said that, we knew that something was not right here. Because of how can you imply that at the end of December, 233,000 tourists have been recorded. And that at the end of the tourism season, which will be around May, right, another 30,000 tourists between January, February, March, April, May. That's 5 months and just 30,000 tourists. No, no, no. When we started to dig around, we realized that definitely something was not right. We've been trying to get. Went to the town hall to ask the tourism minister about the figures and to clarify, but we felt like that was not sufficient. We submitted a request for information to the GT board to tell us what are the figures with regards to tourists in this season. And what we've identified is between October and December, only around 72,000 tourists have been in the country, and it's not more than between September and it's not over 100,000. So when we realized that, we did our fact check. We made our publication, and it's out there because yes, I don't know what measure or yardstick one will be able to say that there is a tourism boom, but that was our story, and you can go and check it out. An investigative piece which we've done. Took a lot of time. We've been working on this. Since President Barrow made the statement in January, we've been working on this. And then finally we got the information, just few days, and then brought it out. Edward, your take on this, or what's your view?
Yeah, you know, when I listened to the president, I said, wow. Because I was at the press conference.
You raised up the matter.
Yeah, I raised up the matter. Because I was at the press conference, and the GT board director projected that
there will be 232.
And I even wrote a story about it.
About it, yes. You first wrote a story about so it. People, this is what happens. Us journalists, Edward had attended a press conference last year. I think it was in October or December.
It was in
October.
Yeah.
And then the tourism minister had projected that in this tourist season, we will be getting 32,000 tourists, right? So when the president now said that December, we've got 233,000 tourists, questions, which is why Edward brought it to our attention. But please continue so that people can understand. We don't just sit here. We start looking to witch hunt or to attack anybody. No, that's not how we operate. But please, just go on. I just want people to understand.
So when this came up, I sit and said, no, this is impossible, because 232 and 233, then which means we have just reached the projection.
We have reached it already, and the tourism season has not even gone halfway.
And I went and I saw that he projected 268.
Yes, which is at the 13%. So somebody must have given the president
the
wrong information. That's what I believe personally. And but of course, it's the president's duty to make sure that what he is saying is factual, and he has to interrogate the people that are sending him. I don't know, the president has presidential advisors. The president should have people who should be fact-checking his statements and reading the statements that are brought to him. But it seems like that is not happening.
It seems like that is not happening, because things like this to happen, it seems like there is lapses somewhere.
Lapses somewhere, which brings us to the last story, which we are going to highlight. Another fact. This one is a fact sheet. We wanted it to be a fact check, but we turned it into a fact sheet upon discussing with our editors. We do have. We don't just sit here in house and just write it all the time. We do have editors. We don't need to mention their names, but they highlighted that. Look, yes, this is actually a very important observation. How did this start? Well, last year, the president was saying some years back, I think now, not last year.
It was some years back.
Yes, 2 years back. Yeah. Yes, where the president said that audit reports are just opinions, and that the auditors can be biased.
Yeah.
One of our colleagues wrote a fact sheet around that, highlighting that not to be the case, that auditors are governed by standards, international standards and procedures, and they are based on facts, not based on just opinions. the mere fact that somebody calls it an audit opinion doesn't mean that it's just an opinion that is without fact. So, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, it seems like he's following suit to the president. He also came out on Coffee Time saying that audit reports are just audit opinions and then auditors are only following audit trail. I disagree with him on that. And even during a program which I had with him, I had a little bit of an exchange with him to explain that the part of the audit opinion has already been addressed. It's not just mere opinions. We all know that.
These are facts.
These are fact-based reports based on investigations, based on checking the audit processes, the financial processes which the government institutions have to follow. Are they being followed? These processes are not decided by the auditors. They are processes that the Constitution, that the laws, Public Finance Management Act, are stipulating, are demanding that must be adhered to. Those are the rules which auditors don't create. Auditors just come and check. Are these people, are these institutions following the rules? So that has already been ascertained. Now, on Dr. Ceesay's other claim, additional claim, which is the new element here, that auditors just follow paper trail. We reject that also. When an audit report is done and adverse findings are made, they go back to that institution, right? And then there is something called a management response. So, yes, auditors follow the paper trail. They follow the trail of the regulations, what the law says should happen, what the procedures say should happen, what the regulations say should happen. They make their findings. They investigate, they even bring people and interrogate them. So it's not just paper trail. Then after they have made all their findings, they bring their findings to these institutions and tell them, this is what we have found. What is your response to this? The institutions now respond. So it's going beyond paper trail. This, we must insist and highlight this. We are not going to sit down here and people are being not trying to debunk it. As journalists in Askanwi, this is what we are trying to do. Audit reports, the recurring theme. That's why audit reports are sitting at the police. If the president can continue to say that, if the Minister of Information can continue to say that, the audit report, nobody will be paying attention to it. We might as well just close National Audit Office then, if that's what they are saying. So what's your take on this?
The National Audit Office are doing a great work to be able to highlight certain things.
Indeed.
But now it depends on the other authorities who should implement now the laws that are in place.
Indeed.
Because if you are found of corruption, you have to be prosecuted.
It's not happening in this country.
It's not happening. How many audit reports have National Audit Office produced? But how many prosecutions do we have?
Nothing. Only one, and then they let that guy go scot-free.
So it is something that we should reconsider. Because you cannot spend money on National Audit Office. It is an institution under the government, but it is an independent institution.
Yes.
Let me highlight that.
Very important.
So it is an institution under the government, but independent, and taxpayers' money are being used to finance it. And they are doing their work, bringing out their report, and nothing is coming out of it.
Nothing is coming out of it.
And we are quoting it as mere opinions.
Serious, huh?
It is something serious. How will people now, the public, the layman, how will they be able to follow suit?
Yes.
It is something like, when a leader says something, the leader will influence the mindset of those
people. Indeed, of course.
So if you influence the mindset of those people, how will those people now act? Their reaction with those audit office will be also, this is just mere opinion. This is just a paper.
This is just a paper. They are biased.
So it's just like that. So I think sometimes certain things we say should always be in conformity with who we are.
Indeed.
Because you are a leader.
Indeed.
And people are following you.
People are looking up to them.
People are looking up to you. So I believe that this audit report thing should be held with something very strong. The government should hold these things.
Definitely. In fact, in my opinion, there are different level of opinions that are in the audits. When we say opinions in the audit, it's different. Important issue, the adverse opinion. When they say this is an adverse opinion, and they have found something, adverse finding. For me, there are different levels. In the audit reports, you will see adverse. There is no waste of time for the police. The police should take that thing and investigate and take these people for prosecution.
You know, people are not saying, where is Gamtel? Where is NAWEC? Where is our SOEs?
And all the monies that they have
and
raised.
all the monies they have raised.
Nothing.
Nothing. But the auditors have found out that there are mismanagements that are going on. They have flagged those things. So now the police should take those reports and go further with it.
And they have a financial intelligence unit that is supposed to, or fraud intelligence. They have a unit that is there that is supposed to be looking at these kind of things, financial malpractices, and then prosecuting on trying to move these things, trying to build up the investigation so that the police and the Ministry of Justice can give a legal advice so that they can move ahead. But they are not doing that. And I believe sometimes these people, they are protecting some of these people.
Yeah, because it is very concerning. Just yesterday, I was going to this audit report, and I found out that, oh my God, we are dying. I was chatting with one of my friends, and I told my friend that we are dying as a country.
Wallahi.
Because billions of money are being wasted every year. Just because we are not just following the proper regulations.
We can continue talking about this, but I think we're going to try to leave the program here. There was one comment from one colleague. Can you read it out for us? Let's see if we can get the comment. There was one comment that I observed. Let me see if I can get the comment. Debts, says somebody, are meant to create productivity, employment, and generate wealth. It's true.
It's true.
We agree. Certainly, but that's not happening.
That's not happening here.
In the Gambia case, what is happening is that these debts, they contract them. God knows where these monies are. Because we certainly are not seeing the benefit of these debts. You know, so there's a lot of debt that is being contracted, but where are the monies going?
Central Bank, just week before last, and I asked, because the domestic debt keep on increasing. And I asked the governor, what is influencing this? He took almost 6 minutes trying to explain things.
Did he answer the question? No, went round and round.
he just went round and round.
Okay. Yep.
So trying to highlight the roads that the government is building. And if we go and check all those roads, are they something that we say are coming from debts?
It's worth asking and finding out.
So we should also try to check. When they tell us something, we should go and check.
Check. Yes. Definitely.
We should go and check.
Definitely.
So I will leave it to this.
Thank you so much for anybody, all of you, everybody who is just tuning in and watching this program of the first Askanwi Weekly Review. Those are the stories which we have for you. We also have some fact checks coming out. Next week, we have 2 fact checks on the education sector, on the UTG, the issue of student buses. We'll be bringing that out. How much is this government investing on student buses? Dr. Ceesay claimed that every year 33 million is being spent on student buses. Is that true? Well, tune into Askanwi next week, early, to find out. On Monday, we have that coming for you. And I've been Yusuf Taylor, your host here for the first Askanwi Weekly Review, together with my co-panelist, Edward Francis Dahlia, the next generation of business economy writers, whom we are very proud to introduce you to. Thank you, and we cannot conclude this without thanking our technical guy, our technical team, He's behind the guy behind the camera who says the man of few words, Harry Fai. We can't conclude this program without thanking him for his hard work and his commitment to making sure that we are bringing this live to you. Next week, stay tuned.